Is everyone on? I can't.
I believe we have a quorum, Madam Speaker. I believe so.
Okay. All right.
Live streaming now.
Huh?
We're live streaming now.
Okay, good. All right. Welcome everyone to the first Legislative Policy Committee meeting for this session. We're going to get right into it. Part one, we want to hear an update on the Department of Legislative Services from Victoria L. Gruber.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, and thank you. I wanted to take a few minutes just to update you all on the various changes and things that have happened with the Department of Legislative Services since I last had the opportunity to talk to you. And Mr. President, it's nice to see you as well. One of the big things is I now have to wear reading glasses. So here we go. As you all know, one of the biggest issues that we have been working on for the last couple of interms is our building construction. We have what I would say, we have been plagued. You hate to use that word, but we have been. Our elevators have broken. We've had mold in the building. We had sewage spills in the library. We actually had to be out of the building for a number of months while the mold was remediated. We've had bursting pipes, cracking foundations. And so I very much appreciate all of your support for the new Legislative Services building, which will happen. We're scheduled to be torn down, our current building to be torn down in June of this year, and then hopefully reopen. The plan is to reopen early fall 2024, but certainly by the 2025 session. And as I said, everybody on staff appreciates your support. Also, as a part of this project, we will be remediating the tunnels to the State House, from the DLS building to the State House, but also from the DLS building to the House garage and to the basement of the James Senate office building. Probably, as you all have seen walking through those tunnels, there have been leaks and bubbling paint and lots of other issues. All of that will also be remediated at the same time this project is going to be completed. During this time, you may have already seen some of our staff filling all the nooks and crannies in the House and Senate office buildings. Those moves will continue, but we've also worked out an arrangement with the Maryland Historical Foundation, Annapolis Foundation, and we will be also occupying Shaw House for the 2 years that we are out of the Legislative Services building. Legislative audits, a quick update there. They have always been located in the State Center building. Approximately 115 auditors located in that building. And with the governor announcing that State Center will be closing over the next several years, the auditors who are always on the forefront of staying on top of things, they have moved already to the warehouse at Camden Yards. And they're very excited about that move and believe it will help them with their recruitment and retention. We also have expanded the fraud unit in the Office of Legislative Audits, adding 2 pins so that they can expand their work through the fraud hotline and a broader expanse of what they can do to respond to hotline tips. So with that, another thing, and Mike Powell is on the line, again, with your support, we created a new Office of Program Evaluation and Government Accountability. And that office completely developed under the last 2 pandemic years. And they have matured significantly over the last 2 years. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Powell just to give you an update of what, even in these pandemic times, this new office has been able to accomplish. So with that, Mike, are you with us?
I am.
Great.
Thanks, Vicki. Mr. President, Madam Speaker, committee members, we have done a decent amount of work. I think last time I saw you, we had completed 2 evaluations in our first year. We're in our 3rd now. This year, we've completed 3 so far. One this summer was of the Vehicle Theft Prevention Council, which is a grant-making agency up at the Maryland State Police. And then in the last couple of weeks, we put out 2 more. One is of the Division of Correction and them helping people being released from correctional facilities get forms of state identification. And the second one is of the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, or what a lot of people still know as GOCAP. Also during the last year, we staffed the Senate Vaccine Oversight Work Group. It's hard to believe that was just a year ago that started. Next week, I expect to publish a fourth report for this year, which will be of the state's Minority Business Enterprise Program. And we've initiated two others, one of the MTA Police and one of the Excel's quality rating system for childcare providers. We've got two more planned in our work plan for this year. And we will propose a fiscal 23 work plan after session is over. I'm interested in everyone's input. I want to thank OPA and Ryan Bishop for the partnership we have with them to do some work during the interim and use some of his folks. As Vicki mentioned, we're up to 5 people, all of whom came on board during this pandemic. We're looking forward to a post-pandemic world. And I'll just say I'm proud of the work that the team's done. I'm happy with the team. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Madam Speaker, I would just add to echo from Mr. Pallett, and thank you, Ms. Gruber, as always, that the work that was done for the vaccine oversight, just the weekly updates, the quality of the work, it was phenomenal. It was top class. So it's really that office has developed incredibly well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments as it relates to the Department of Legislative Services?
So with that, I'll just continue with some of the additional new things
Okay,
that have
go right ahead.
happened. Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. So as many of you may have seen already, last session, we established a fellows program. For many years, I spoke to fellows, graduate degree fellows who were from the University of Delaware or Rutgers University, and it became very clear to me that the state of Maryland and the Maryland General Assembly needed its own legislative fellows program. So that launched in the session of 2020. It was a very successful program. We actually were very fortunate to hire 2 fellows who participated in the program last session, and it has launched once again this session. We're all somewhat limited in the pandemic, what's available, who can be on campus and what they have access to. But I'm very much looking forward to the General Assembly reopening and our ability to expand the fellows program. We are also hoping to create a 3-credit course that the fellows who participate in our program will actually get graduate level credit for their participation in their program. And we as a department would actually pay for the tuition for them to participate in that program. So we are working on that as well. I hope we can launch that next session for you all to be able to see our expanded fellows program in action. So with that, the next item that also got established last session as a pilot program was we launched a racial equity impact note function. We are now one of the few states in the country that has a substantive program to evaluate criminal justice legislation as to its racial and equity impact. We have grown that program since last session. We did approximately 13 bills as a pilot program last session. And this session, we hope to expand that to as many bills in the criminal justice arena as we have data for. But I would note, and this will be headed your way as leadership of the General Assembly, that we need more data. Maryland, as a state with a very forward-thinking information technology industry, we're not good about data collection. And so we have worked over the interim to put together proposed legislation for you all to consider that would require various state agencies, local government law enforcement agencies to report various information that will help us in our efforts to inform you about the racial and equity impact of various pieces of legislation. So that's headed your way. It's in the drafting process, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that we are doing the best we can to get as much information as possible to inform your decision-making process.
Thank you.
So with that, we have also hired a new diversity, equity, and inclusion officer at the Department of Legislative Services. Michelle Davis prior served in that role, and she has now been promoted to be manager of the Racial Equity Impact Note function. So we hired a new diversity and equity and inclusion officer. Her name is Brooke Connolly, and we are hoping and looking forward to working with all of you to develop trainings to help with recruiting, staff assistance, so that we can be the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive agency, well, I would say in the state, but for you as members of the General Assembly. As you also know, the climate survey has kicked off. This is, I'm sure you remember, as a part of the Workplace Harassment Commission recommendations, one of the recommendations was that DLS every 2 years conduct a climate survey. And this committee approved that recommendation. It's now a part of the guidelines, and we contracted over the summer with the University of Baltimore Schaefer Center to conduct the climate survey. It launched on the Monday before the legislative session started. We've gotten pretty good participation, and any chance you have to encourage your colleagues and your staff to participate in the survey, the more information, the better. And so we would greatly appreciate that. And finally, I would just say, during the pandemic, I hope none of you all have seen a single hiccup from our agency. We have continued to provide the highest level of customer service to each and every member of the General Assembly. We will continue to do so under any circumstances, and I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments from the members? You overwhelmed them.
Thank you all. We
Yeah.
appreciate the support.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we will have a report from the State Treasurer's Office. Treasurer Derek Davis.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here before each and every one of you. We have a 22-page report, I believe, that's been distributed. If I still remember my lessons well, I will not go over the entire 22 pages, but rather if I can go through just a page and a half, we've broken it out into the Board of Public Work highlights, Treasury Management, debt management, and insurance. So I'll get started with the BPW highlights. We approved a request of the Maryland Stadium Authority to award a pre-construction services contract for the raising and replacement of the Department of Legislative Services building that Ms. Gruber referenced earlier. We also approved the Board of Public Works General Counsel's recommendation to give or to grant Melvin Thomas compensation to be paid over 7 fiscal years ending July 31st, 2026. Mr. Thomas was also awarded additional funding for financial and other appropriate counsel.
As Dr. Evans mentioned.
Hold on a second. Okay.
All right.
Okay, go back.
Okay. We also approved the Board of Public Works General Counsel's recommendation to award supplemental compensation under the new Walter Lomax Act to 3 individuals. BPW approved a request from the State Board of Elections to award a contract to provide ballot packet printing and mailing services. And the board heard and accepted 95 emergency procurements related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And those items can be found generally between pages 2 and 4 of the full packet of the full Treasurer's report. In Treasury Management, under banking services, the state's bank accounts reconciled to the general ledger to the penny. Cash receipts and disbursements exceeded $226 billion this fiscal year thus far. Monitoring collateral for over 1,346 banks at 23 financial institutions. Under investment services, the general fund investment portfolio as of December 31st was $15.3 billion, an increase of $6.4 billion from that time last year. Average interest earnings on the portfolio decreased from 1.75% last year to 0.319% this year. General fund gross interest earning as of December 31st are $30.8 million. Maryland's local government investment pool balance as of December 31st is $10.8 billion, an increase of over $509 million from last year. The pool is currently yielding nearly 0.04%, consisting of 305 participants. If we can move on to debt management now. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch Ratings all reaffirmed the AAA bond rating for Maryland in August of 2021. And as we all know, only 13 states have this coveted bond rating. General obligation bond sale in February resulted in $425 million in tax-exempt new money bonds and $50 million in taxable new money bonds to finance new projects. The August sale resulted in $540 million in tax-exempt new money bonds, $75 million in taxable new money bonds, and $237 million in forward funding bonds, which will save the state approximately $39 million in debt services. Excuse me. And then finally, under insurance, the insurance division of the state treasurer's office saved the state $414 million in commercial interest premiums in a hard market. Cyber, network security, and private insurance renewed effective September 30th, 2021. The blanket commercial program extends coverage to agencies of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and state universities and colleges. The cyber insurance is intended to respond to privacy, data releases, hacking, extortion, among other threats. Global insurance remained volatile in the domestic and foreign markets for the following reasons. Number one, there have been an overwhelming number of various losses worldwide with adverse results. Increases in claims, litigation, and plaintiff verdicts. Carriers under prior policies have declined to renew and have exited the market or are unwilling to underwrite these types of risks. And finally, limited markets to write transportation risks. Catastrophic natural weather events have contributed to poor outcomes for commercial property insurers, so that there have been and will continue to be changes in insurance availability and the cost of commercial insurance for state-owned property. Higher rates will occur for property insurance, including flood coverage, and deductibles for hail and windstorm damages will continue to escalate. And then finally, just under claims, fiscal year to date subrogation recoveries from third parties who damaged state property totaled 489,000. Current litigation caseload is 161. Again, that's just some of the highlights. The full report, I believe, has been distributed. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Yes, it had been distributed. I read all 22 pages. So, and thanks for the savings that you had referenced. Any questions from any of the members? You did such a great job. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maryland General Assembly Personnel Guidelines, proposed revision. Laura L. Matthew.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just have a few proposed changes to the General Assembly Personnel Guidelines. Number one being recognizing Juneteenth, a holiday along with the rest of the state. This year, the holiday actually falls on June 20th. And another change to the recommended change to the personnel guidelines is to, I just updated the list of staff to report violations of the General Assembly's anti-harassment policy too. So we added Sally Robb, which, as you know, is Chief of Staff for the President, and Rhonda Caldwell-Dove, who works out of the Speaker's office. So those two employees will be added to the list, and training, they will receive the necessary training. And that concludes my only changes to the handbook this year.
Okay.
Move
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Speaker, I would move to
Yes.
adopt the revisions to the handbook.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, they are adopted. Okay, Laurie, that's it. Okay,
I just have to, yes, that's it for the guidelines.
okay, all right, but go ahead.
All right, so as you're aware, the General Assembly requires annual reporting of the data of discrimination complaints. This is the 4th year of compiling the data. And during the period January 2021 through December 2021, I'm happy to report that there were no complaints reported during the period.
Very good, very good,
So
excellent.
do we have any questions?
Any questions of Laurie? Okay. Hearing none. Thank you. All right, that concludes your report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The last report, aggregate report on discrimination complaints calendar year 2021.
I think that was that. I believe
Huh?
that was that one.
Oh, okay. All right,
I
so
think
we're
we should
done.
move to adjourn.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. See you all soon.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.